Hey there, so you may have been to a Buddhist event and heard groups of Buddhists or Buddhist interested people chanting in perhaps in a language which wasn't your first language, wasn't English, was an Indian language, and you may have wondered what it meant. So I'm here with Amarapuspa. My name is Viryanaga, and we're doing a series currently on Introduction to Ritual. And over the last couple of weeks, we've been exploring why do ritual and the symbolism of the shrine. And today, we're going to take a closer look at mantra and the practice of chanting mantra. So first thing to say is wherever you're tuning in from, do say hi in the chat room or leave us a comment if you're watching after the event. Just let us know where you're tuning in from. It really helps us to know who we're speaking to. And if you've got any questions during the course of this live stream or after watching it back on YouTube, then do just leave us a question in the chat room or in the comments box, and we'll definitely get back to you. So so let's just launch into it. So I'll give a little summary of a little bit about the origins of mantra, perhaps. Then I'm going to bring Amarapuspa in, and we're going to have a little discussion around the practice of mantra, particularly if you're new to Buddhist ritual and mantra practice. And then what we'll do in the second half of tonight's event, we'll have a ritual, an opportunity for you to join in with the Buddhist ritual at home. You can observe, watch, or participate as much as you want. And Amarapuspa will also before that, we'll be leading a short meditation as well, a short sort of reflection meditation. So hopefully a really good evening for you tonight. So what is it about mantra? So I did a bit of research. I asked a few friends and got a bit of background information on mantras because I didn't know the history of them myself before doing this class, before preparing for this class. And I was reliably informed that they come out of sort of pre-Buddhist kind of chanting or spells. So in ancient India, so Buddhism is a sort of ancient Indian religion, and back in those thousands of years ago, there would have been a lot of sense of magic or superstition around lots of gods that people would have worshipped and so on. And people didn't write anything down then. It was very much an oral tradition. People passed on stories and sayings and narratives and teachings, all verbally. So the origin of mantra, the origin of sort of chanting sort of teachings or chanting kind of remembrances about teachings, probably stemmed from that oral tradition of passing down stories amongst different tribes or villages or towns even, and participating passing on information that way. And I find the idea around it coming out of sort of a spell very interesting. I'll say a bit more about that later. So presumably you had in these sort of ancient villages, ancient tribes and so on. You had the sort of shamans or the Brahmins that were the kind of holders of usually sort of conduits to the gods. They had the ability to, supposedly cure people or converse with people or tell the future or read people's future and so on. So you can really imagine how that there might have been a kind of historical lineage of or people chanting or people evoking certain things, certain events, certain gods even, cures and so on in that kind of history. So what you've got here is, I think you've got a kind of evolution of that kind of practice, a very kind of, if you like, very human sort of tribal practice in India. And of course, when Buddhism arrived on the scene, it too was not originally written down, it was an oral tradition, so it was passed on through practitioners, sharing teachings. And a very good way of remembering teachings is to chant them, is to put them to a kind of rhythm, a pace. It's much easier to remember a song than it is a sort of paragraph. So you can imagine that that's where some of the origin of Buddhist chanting came from. But of course, that's not the end of it. Buddhism has, throughout the course of thousands of years, Buddhism and Buddhist practice has definitely evolved in all sorts of different ways and split off into a variety of different traditions. Interestingly, chanting and mantra practice is a strong part of a lot of different traditions, a lot of different cultural traditions of Buddhism as well. And nowadays, we think of them as kind of symbols of enlightenment, symbols of the qualities of enlightenment. So, if you like, there's lots of different mantras. Of course, we can chant teachings again. We do that, both in our tradition and a lot of other Buddhist traditions. But you also have these kind of mantras, which in a way are usually associated with a certain, what we'd call a bodhisattva, a Buddha figure, an archetypal figure. And these figures have emerged to represent the kind of different qualities of the enlightened mind. So you might have a figure whose main kind of emphasis is compassion or energy or fearlessness or even reality itself. And over the kind of millennia, they've taken on these kind of symbolic forms, usually very beautiful figures, adorned with all sorts of jewels or instruments or accoutrements and so on, to represent different aspects of the richness of the enlightened mind. And you almost always, they've got an associated sound symbol, a mantra to go with them. So even the Buddha has the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, has a mantra that's associated with him, which is Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakyamuni Swaha. So in that case, it's a mantra with meaning. It means basically the great sage of the Shakyan clan. So that's what he was known as. But some mantras are just have less meaning. They're often just a name, or sometimes even just a collection of sounds. But in all cases, they try and capture this sense of this quality of the enlightened mind. So as we might recite them, or as we might do them as a collective practice, gradually we build up associations with them, and almost just by doing the mantra, we can dwell on that quality, almost like a meditation. We can dwell on that quality of the enlightened mind, be it compassion, wisdom, transformation, whatever it is. So anyway, I quite like this idea that they're sort of still spells, if you see what I mean. They're a way of sort of evoking a certain experience in us, or a certain sort of a window to something a bit deeper. So I sort of like that idea. And it's, you might think, well, that sounds a bit like fantasy, or that sounds a bit like magic, or maybe that's not very rational. But actually, if you kind of build up a relationship with mantra practice, it can be really explicit and clear. So I'm quite a bit of an outdoorsy type, and I quite like walking, and I quite like things like sailing. And sometimes if I'm out at night, and particularly if I'm out at sea on a sailboat, and I'm out at night, and these big waves are coming at you up the dark, it's like 3 a.m. in the morning or whatever, and it's it can be a bit scary. And when I notice that fear rising up in me, what I've tended to do, or what I've started to do, is to start doing mantras. And I might do the mantra, for those of you that know, I might do the Green Tara mantra, or the Avalokiteshvara mantra. And these mantras, in a way, will suddenly, my mind will feel free of fear. My kind of heartbeat will settle, and I'll feel like I won't feel afraid anymore. So even in the sort of here and now, it's not an abstract idea. Just by practicing mantra and by building up an association with this quality, whatever the quality is for us, it can really affect our state of mind. It can really affect our actual state of mind in the here and now. So I still like that association that it is a bit like magic. So we'll say more about that, I'm sure, no doubt. So just to go back, is one of the things that mantras are said to do is protect the mind. So in a certain way, that little story might be an example of the mantra protecting the mind. So in a minute I'll bring in Amarapuspa. I'll just say one final thing first of all, in that yeah, there are also, if you go to a local Buddhist centre and you participate in a ritual, quite often mantra practice will happen as part of a collective practice, and often as part of a devotional segment to the evening. So, you know, quite often, we talked last week about saluting the shrine and paying respects to the shrine, in a certain way representing the ideal. So when we do mantra together as a group, it's a way of sort of collectively, well, engaging in collective practice, and also sort of collectively bringing to mind that intention, bringing, if you like, paying reverence or respect, or even paying kind of devotion to these qualities or these ideals, as often represented by these archetypal figures. So there's hopefully you're already getting the idea, there's a lot in mantra, a lot to be said, but rather than carry on talking, I might bring Amarapuspa in at this point, and maybe we'll have a bit of a discussion. So any immediate responses to what I've been talking about?
Yeah, a lot of different things. I mean, one is that you brought out is that they can seem very strange and foreign if you're not familiar with mantra. And I think what we've been talking about for the first 2 weeks about ritual is that I think we need to understand what they're for, what the purpose is. You know, that there's a natural yearning in humans to do ritual. We can understand it. You know, like when someone dies, you naturally want to do ritual. So we've been building up understanding why Buddhist ritual, and I think mantra is like another dimension. For one thing, of bringing in that spirit of wholeheartedness that we've been talking about, is that bringing our voices in a certain magic way, as you say, and our voices have a reverberation. And I think one thing about mantras is it's kind of hard to talk about. It's more about experiencing it. You know, just try it and see. There's this word in Buddhism, ehipassiko. Try it for yourself and see. And they don't particularly have to have any meaning at all, you know, on a rational basis. In a way, one of the purposes is to help us get beyond conceptual mind, because the place of enlightenment is beyond that level of concepts. So, and there's a lot of repetition with mantra, which I find fascinating, you know, and I think that's in the realm of spell. I guess one other area I'm interested in is, you know, you started out talking about chanting, and I think chanting is familiar in all religious traditions. If there are sacred words, there tends to be like a singing rhythm to the way they're recited. And later we're gonna talk about a chant we'll do in the puja. But to me that's a bit different from mantra, which is just a few syllables, and they have a certain reverberation. And yeah, so that's a bit different. Yeah.
It just reminded me that, you know, we've been talking a lot about with body, speech, and mind, haven't we? The idea that, like you're saying, the wholeheartedness and this being a kind of speech expression, you know, that sort of element. So, you know, people getting into ritual or just coming to a ritual might be, in a way, or involving yourself in a ritual might be mind in a way.
Yes.
You know, getting up, making an offering might be body, or even just coming maybe is body as well. But yeah, you've got the speech, you know, the repeating the verses, the chanting, and particularly the mantra as the speech movement.
As a, you know, and you brought in the visual, you know, that could be associated with a visual symbol. And it's a sound symbol, which I find really, you know, so it symbolizes something intangible, really. And I really like, our teacher Sangharakshita says, a mantra works by virtue of the fact that it is a locus of power or energy which is unknown to science and cannot be measured by ordinary means. So there's something quite mysterious to it, as you were saying. And it strengthens our link. I mean, another teacher would say it strengthens our link to these enlightenment qualities that we're working towards transformation, working towards those qualities, but in a certain way, we need all the help we can get. And certain reverberations of a mantra, in a way, we don't have to think about something. We think about it. We just allow it to do its own work. So it's again experiencing it is a way of getting that sense.
Well, it's very interesting, that isn't it? Very sort of peculiar, because if you, like if you do mantras for a little while, it's sort of in a way your experience is, quite straightforward or something. But if you keep doing mantra for a long period of time, like maybe if you keep up a chant for, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, really strange things start to happen, doesn't it? It's almost like you enter, somehow the kind of sound kind of takes you over, it loses any sense of, kind of meaning, but somehow your consciousness enters a sort of liminal space where it's very strange, isn't it? So I'd really, just encourage people to really don't just give mantra like a go for a few minutes, definitely give it a go for a little bit longer, like you would a meditation perhaps.
It's a way of, I guess another way of transcending the self. So you get the example of being afraid. Often, sometimes friends have advised me, or I've advised friends, that if you're really troubled by something and you just can't solve it on some level, chant a mantra, and it just gets you into another plane of being. It just brings space into it.
It's sort of non-rational, isn't it? Although we can sort of talk about it, and we might be able to approach it about, why might you do mantra? The actual kind of effect of it is almost completely non-rational.
That's right. And very beautiful, the cultures. I mean, there is a whole tradition in Buddhism, the Vajrayana, of mainly the Tibetan school of Buddhism, but it's also known as the Mantrayana, because they so focus on mantras. And there are wonderful descriptions about, the most famous mantra there, Om Mani Padme Hum, associated with the figure of compassion. And you see it everywhere there, and then there are these wheels where they're just going around and round and round, and you push the wheel, and then I just read one description of being there, and you just hear people chanting it everywhere you are, and it's kind of creating this whole other plane of being, very, very refined, actually, very sensitized, and evoking, I guess, higher spiritual qualities.
Well, there is something magical, isn't there, when it's a collective as well.
Yes.
And it's great to do mantra practice on your own, one way or another, but also it really does kind of come together when you've got a collective practice of mantra together, doesn't it? It seems almost... Well, again, it's maybe it's another way of going beyond yourself in a way, being part of something which is much bigger.
And there's incredible traditions of repeating mantras. I think us Western Buddhists, when I think you and I were in Bodh Gaya 2 years ago, where the Buddha gained enlightenment, and there were many Tibetan groups there and other groups, and it was just, they could just chant for hours. It's very much a part of their culture, but it's very inspiring. And the malas or rosaries will have 108 beads, so it's just standard that you would chant 108 mantras at a time, which I can't say I do. I guess another thing about mantras, you can chant it internally. So, that it doesn't have to be out. So there's also this inner voice, the senses inside of us, so inner sound. I just find very, like we talked about inner offering, so imagining what we're offering. And bringing, connecting with our intention. So the sound of the voice, depending on our intention, has different effects out in the world. If we bring that into mantra or anything with ritual, it's it's a two-way street. Something takes over, but also we're part of what takes over.
I did a couple of years ago. I did a pilgrimage. I did a walk, a yatra.
Yes,
it was 100 miles over 10 days, or whatever. And I had my mala with me, 108 beads, and I just started, like day one or day two, I just started chanting a mantra, and it just kind of stuck, and I did it every day, so the whole walk, and it just sort of like it was part of, it wasn't like I was necessarily consciously doing it, but it just sort of became part of the whole process of just one foot in the other, and the chant, and
Yes,
the beads,
yes.
and the, do you know what I mean? And it was just something quite, well, I can't really completely explain it, but it just felt entirely of one piece.
Yeah, like wholehearted.
Yeah,
what we've been
that's
talking
right.
about. Oh,
You know, and I wasn't particularly trying to be devotional. I wasn't particularly
Yes.
trying to do that, but it just became sort of part of the fabric of my kind of day in a way. But I guess, you know, when you're doing something like that, it's very easy to think, oh, my feet hurt, what's for lunch?
Yeah,
God, this person's walking slowly. Do you know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
just like so easy to sort of slide off into distraction or thinking about the next thing. But you know, just by having that as part of my kind of background mind, it was really good because it just left me free in a way to look around and appreciate the landscape I was in and appreciate people I was with, and just, you know, very, very enjoyable in a way, just to sort of integrate it into something I was doing already rather than make it a special
yeah.
kind of thing.
That's the thing, it's so simple that you can integrate it, and it's so simple. Sometimes I ask myself, why don't I just do a mantra? And there's something, because it is just so simple. And you know, you think your life is very complicated, and then you just bring in this mantra, and it just completely takes you somewhere else. And yeah, I just find it very mysterious.
It's sort of also the easiest practice to access in a way, isn't it?
It is.
There's
Yes.
nobody that doesn't have time to do a bit of
That's-
mantra.
That's true.
You know, walk to the shops, go to the bar, you know,
So
on the way to the
true.
bus or whatever. You know, it's like I understand that people have problems like meditating every day and carving out 30
Yes.
minutes or something, but you know, everyone has got time to
Yes.
do a mantra on their way to wherever.
That's right, and very, very potent. And there are school of Buddhisms that are just focused around a mantra. And I was thinking of a Pure Land school and Shinran in Japan. He wanted to bring a Buddhist practice to people who couldn't read or write or study. And he just had them, you know, putting their faith into this mantra. And it's very, very moving to read about people's experiences that way. And I think, you know, those schools continue to this day.
Great. There was a couple of questions. I gathered a few questions before coming.
great.
So let me just
You're
pitch
on.
one of these at you. So Ian was asking how do we incorporate mantra, well, the practice of mantra into his life in a way, and how, you know, are there any good way? How might he find a way of getting into it in his own way? If you've got any reflections on that.
I think, you know, making the effort to learn mantras. You know, you know, there are, obviously we teach in the class. We're going to do a mantra tonight and next week. We have been doing mantras. So, I mean, I learned mantras just by turning up at classes and pujas, and then and I think what's important is find one you resonate with. That's that same ehipasiko. And then not worry about the pronunciation, not worrying if you got the right inflection, because they evolve. Mantras evolve, and they're becoming much more musical since Westerners have been doing, you know, in a much more Western way. You know, that would be some of my thoughts. I don't know if you have.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was just going to say that the Tibetan ones are all monotone, aren't they?
Yes,
usually,
that's right.
They've become quite sort of
Yes, we've become much more
melodic.
melodic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think all of that. I mean, just do them in a way. I think for me, mantra practice has built up over time. I think it does. It's more powerful when one has those associations. You know, like I think you're right. It's good to learn them, and you want to find something that you resonate with. You know, a quality that it evokes for you, or the mantra's connected with. But then, I guess as you just, it's worth just giving it, letting it build up over time, and letting that association develop, and then, you know, in a certain way, you can very easily evoke that state of mind just by starting the mantra. So, yeah, I think, try them out, I guess. Try them out, find one that does something for you, and then keep doing it.
Yeah, and then sometimes mantras come to you. You know, I do a mantra that just came to me. You know, related to a traditional mantra, but it's become very much my way in of practicing. So again, I think sometimes people can be inhibited about getting things right with ritual, and you know, I think it's always nice to have a balance and learn, but at the same time, it's you know, to get past that inhibition of am I doing it right or wrong. The important thing is just to try it out and do it.
It's sort of like, as with most things in Buddhism, it's the intention, isn't it, behind
Yes, that's
it, rather
right.
than the actual sort of doing of it. Whether
Yes.
it's, I mean, sometimes you'll go to collective practice and it doesn't sound very good because it's all a bit off key and, you know, and that's okay.
Yes.
You know, sometimes it sounds wonderful with all the different harmonies and so on, but, you know, it's just sort of, it's fine. It's still the same impulses there.
Yes. I mean, it is fine, but at the same time, we also try to practice listening out for each other and trying to tune in, you know, rhythm and whatever ways. And there's also a little protocol we do mantras that probably we don't talk about, but you kind of pick up, is that who's ever leading a mantra will chant it twice, and then everybody joins them. You know, that just makes it more of a, I don't know, it just makes it clearer. And, you know.
And also, maybe it's good to say that if you are new to mantra, it's okay just to listen and make sure you get it.
Yes.
You know, so whenever I come across a new mantra, I just can't get it in that first couple. I've got to really listen carefully and make sure I've got it down before I join in.
Yes.
So I don't risk derailing the,
that's right.
the kind of...
Yeah, there is a middle way of that.
Good. And Ian also gave me another good question, which was, what is he supposed to be thinking whilst he's doing mantra? We did say a bit about that, didn't we? But I don't know if you've got a comment or two.
I'd say one answer would be you wouldn't be thinking about anything but the sound of the mantra and the reverberations in your body, because it is quite a physical thing, mantra. But you could bring to mind the quality that it's associated with, you know, to find that helpful. And I find it helpful. You know, some are connected with wisdom or compassion or fearlessness, as you say.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And you know, if you know that there's a figure associated with it, you can bring to mind the figure.
Yes.
I mean, I definitely find that I settle into mantra practice. So at the beginning, it is good for me to kind of really work on, you know, bringing to mind those qualities, or you know, getting quite close to that association. And then, you know, as the mantra goes on and I kind of sink into it, almost like a meditation, I can sort of let go of that and just sort of be with the experience of the mantra. You know, definitely takes a little bit to get into it. You know. Yeah. Which is sort of why, I mean, maybe it's probably why it's most effective as part of a bigger ritual, because in a certain way there's something around the atmosphere, isn't it? Like often in a ritual there might be one or two mantras, depending on how long the ritual is, and you know, it's really good to go through those, you know, a bit of chanting, there's a saluting the shrine, there's some verses, and then maybe the mantra emerges. So in a way you're coming into it not so cold, you know, and then you're already kind of, well, I find I'm already sort of receptive and open after doing the ritual, that the mantra kind of has an effect. Yeah.
Builds up, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's also actually reminding me of one thing I really want to say, which is after the mantra, the most magical part of a ritual, for me anyway, is that moment when the mantra just dies away. So usually it fades out gradually. You know, almost like collectively, sort of people decide to fade it out, don't they? And then there's this moment of silence after the mantra that's absolutely like can feel electrifying.
Yes, and very, very rich and deep, profound, and
So maybe another sort of point of etiquette is to be really quiet at that point.
Yes.
Quite often when it finishes, it's easy for people to sort of fidget or you know, think, oh, it's over now. But you know, whenever I'm leading a ritual, I always really encourage people just to sit as still and as quiet as you can, almost without breathing, for just a few seconds at the end of that mantra. Maybe 10 seconds if you can manage it before the bell goes.
And also to warn them that there'll be a space after the mantra dies out. until the bell goes, because that might seem a bit strange. You might think, oh, the mantra's died out, let's go. So it just kind of trains us to wait and really absorb it in our bodies.
It's almost sort of like the payoff, isn't it? It's almost sort of like the kind of response you get.
That's right.
You've done this whole ritual, and the mantra is usually the last thing.
Yeah.
And you've done, you've made this great sort of offering up, and that is the moment when it all sort of comes back.
Yes.
It comes home to roost or something.
Yeah.
So don't. It's not very sort of that. I feel very protective over that moment.
Yes.
Wanting to really appreciate it and conserve it.
Absolutely, it's very beautiful. Yeah.
Good. So is there anything else you wanted to say?
Don't think so. I think doing it would be good, unless there are any other questions.
Then you just check the chat room, see if there's any other comments. We've just got a hi from Pam. So hi Pam.
Oh, hi Pam.
Yeah, lovely to have you join us. If you've got any more questions before the end, do put them in the chat room in the comments, and I'm sure we can get around to them. So in a moment we'll do a bit of meditation.
So maybe we'll salute the shrine before the meditation or before the puja? Maybe.
Let's do it. Why don't we do it before the puja?
Okay.
Yeah. Let's do
So,
that. Yeah, great. So before we do that, before I hand over to Amarapuspa to lead us in meditation, I just want to do an appeal for money. Oh, my phone is making noises at me. We do this a lot. We ask you for money, just like as if you're coming to a class, there'd be a dana bowl that goes around. And we do this because, of course, in this world that we're in, everything requires money to run. And we have a budget, or we need to raise £2,000 every month to keep everything going. And that pays to hire this studio space, to hire this class space. It also goes towards paying a few team members. So myself, Jack and Lizzie, all employed part-time by Brixton to basically run the events and the live streams and do all the promotion and all sorts of other multitude of things. So so we haven't been doing, we're a bit short on our target this month. I get the total from Jack because I didn't write it down.
1,116.
So 1,116 this month. So it's the last day of the month, the 30th. So it might be a bit of a long shot to try and raise like £850 tonight. But any donation is really appreciated. So if you can make a donation in our to the Brixton Buddhist community, it'll be put to really good use, and you'll just help us get a bit closer to that total. And I'll be back next month to ask you for more. So Jack will be putting the link in the description, so you'll be able to go to there to give a donation to tonight. Okay. So we're just going to reorganise slightly. And
get into more of a ritual space.
A ritualistic space. You may hear the raindrops as well outside, so you could just make that part of your meditation.
They're quite staccato, those raindrops here. Really interesting ones, effort-based raindrops. So we're going to enter a meditative space with mantra. I'll say a bit about that in a moment. After the meditation, I'll ring the bell, then Viryanaga will salute the shrine to prepare for the puja. And we have been doing the threefold puja the last two evenings of this course. And we're going to add something a bit extra into tonight. So I talked about chanting and how different religions chant verses that are very important. So we're going to chant the most important sacred verses of Buddhism, known as the refuges and precepts. And that will be after the second section of the threefold puja. And some of it is in a foreign language, and I have to say, for me it's a turn-off when I don't know what those words mean. So ideally we would have them posted, but I'll just summarize that in the language, which is the Buddha's original language. It would be praise to the Buddha, the first three lines, the enlightened one. and the shower of the way. That would be us paying our respects and gratitude to the Buddha. And then the next few verses is repeating the three refuges, our three most precious refuges. So taking refuge in the Buddha, taking refuge in the Dharma, his teaching, and taking refuge in the Sangha. And you'll hear those words in the Pali. And they're repeated because they're very important. In a sense, it's body, speech, and mind. And then we go on to chanting the precepts, which again is in Pali. Some of it is in Pali, and some will be in English. And they're the ethical guidelines. So they're not commandments, but they're ethical values by which Buddhists live. And we end with the English positive aspiration of those precepts. So they're very, very, they'll be chanted by Buddhists everywhere in the world for over 2,500 years. We heard loads of it when we were in Bodh Gaya. And so we want to just bring that element in. But we'll start now with a short meditation. And one thing we didn't mention is mantra chanting can be a very effective way to clear the mind, to protect the mind, to start a meditation. And particularly, and it can have a quality that we're evoking. And I thought we would chant, one of the oldest Buddhist mantras, which is the Save Sata Sukhi Hotu, which means may all beings be well, may all beings be happy. And this was one of the few mantras chanted in the Buddha's time. And he taught it actually as an antidote to fear for the monks. But just try chanting it. Chant it for a while and then we let it die out. And we just sit in a metaful, meditative silence for a few minutes. And then I'll ring the bell. But really observe the effect on your body, what the experience is of chanting the mantra. Okay. So we'll take a few moments to settle, getting ourselves into a comfortable seated posture. Taking in sounds. Connecting with our breath. And on the out breath, imagining we're just relaxing our weight more to the ground. And letting go any tensions into that stable, still support of the ground. And on the in-breath, just imagining we're opening our chest, opening our hearts. With a kindly awareness of how we are. Looking for a sense of uplift and lightness in the upper parts of our bodies. And getting more and more of a sense of the breath. More of sensations associated with breathing throughout the body. Imagining that breath, bringing in kindness towards ourselves, and breathing out kindness and goodwill towards others. Taking in metta and then breathing it back out. And then we'll strengthen that connection with metta, chanting this mantra. Sabe Sata Sukhi Bhantu. 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 Just experiencing the effects of the mantra.
So we'll start our kind of ritual part now, and we'll start with saluting the shrine, which we talked about last week. So this is turning towards the ideal represented by the Buddha, the path represented by the Dharma, and the Sangha, the spiritual community as well. So you can just follow along with me, and it's a full response if you'd like to join in. And we'll normally would stand, but because of the cameras we will sit this time. Namo Buddhaya,
Namo Buddhaya,
Namo Dhammaya,
Namo Dharmaya,
Namo Sanghaya,
Namo Samkhaya,
Namo Nama,
Namo Namo,
Om
Om
Ah
Ah
Om.
Hum.
So I'll begin with threefold puja, which is in English. You can just follow along in call and response. And Amarapuspa will give the refuges and precepts after the first section, reading after the second section, and we'll finish with a mantra. And then that'll be it for the evening. The threefold puja. Opening reverence. We reverence the Buddha,
We reverence the Buddha,
the perfectly enlightened one,
the perfectly enlightened one,
the shower of the way.
the shower of the way.
We reverence the Dharma,
We reverence the Dharma,
the teaching of the Buddha,
the teaching of the Buddha,
which leads from darkness to light.
which leads from darkness to light.
We reverence the Sangha,
We reverence the Sangha,
the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples,
the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples,
that inspires and guides.
that inspires and guides. Namo tassa
Namo tassa
bhagavato arahato
bhagavato arahato
samma sambuddhassa.
samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa
Namo tassa
bhagavato arahato
bhagavato arahato
samma sambuddhassa.
samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa
Namo tassa
bhagavato arahato
bhagavato arahato
samma sambuddhassa.
samma sambuddhassa.
Buddham saranam gacchami,
Buddham saranam gacchami,
Dhammam saranam gacchami,
Dhammam saranam gacchami,
Sangham saranam gacchami,
Sangham saranam gacchami,
Dutyanpi Buddham saranam gacchami,
Dutyanpi Buddham saranam gacchami,
Dutyanpi Dhammam saranam gacchami,
Dutyanpi Dhammam saranam gacchami,
Dutyanpi Sangham saranam gacchami,
Dutyanpi Sangham saranam gacchami,
Tatyampi Buddham saranam gacchami,
Tatyampi Buddham Saranam Gacchami.
Tatyampi Dharmam Saranam Gacchami.
Tatyampi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami.
Tatyampi Sangham Saranam Gacchami.
Tatyampi Sangham Saranam Gacchami.
Panatipata
Anatipata
Veramani
Veramani
Sikkhapadam
Sikkhapadam
Samadhiyami
Samadhiyami
Adinadamna
Adinadana
Veramani
Veramani
Sikkhapadam
Sikkhapadam
Samadhiyami
Samadhiyami
Kamesu
Kamesu
Mechachara
Mechachara
Veramani
Veramani
Sikkhapadam
Sikkhapadam
Samadhiyami
Samadhiyami
Musavada
Musavada
Veramani
Veramani
Sikkhapadam
Sikkhapadam
Samadhiyami
Samadhiyami
Suramerya
Suramarya
Macha
Maja
Hamaditana
Amaditana
Veramani
Veramani
Sikkhapadam
Sikkhapadam
Samadhiyami
Samadhiyami
Sadhu
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 Sadhu.
Sadhu.
With deeds of loving kindness,
With deeds of love and kindness,
I purify my body.
I purify my body.
With open-handed generosity,
With open-handed generosity,
I purify my body.
I purify my body.
With stillness, contentment, with stillness, simplicity, and contentment,
With stillness, simplicity, and contentment,
I purify my body.
I purify my body.
With truthful communication,
With truthful communication,
I purify my speech.
I purify my speech.
With mindfulness clear and radiant,
With mindfulness clear and radiant,
I purify my mind.
I purify my mind. Offerings to the Buddha. Reverence to the three jewels. We reverence the Buddha
We reverence the Buddha
and aspire to follow him.
and aspire to follow him.
The Buddha was born as we are born.
The Buddha was born as we are born.
What the Buddha overcame,
What the Buddha overcame,
we too can overcome.
we too can overcome.
What the Buddha attained,
What the Buddha attained,
we too can attain.
we too can attain.
We reverence the Dharma
We reverence the Dharma
and aspire to follow it
and aspire to follow it
with body, speech and mind
with body, speech, and mind
until the end.
until the end.
The truth in all its aspects,
The truth in all its aspects,
the path in all its stages.
the path in all its stages.
We aspire to study,
We aspire to study,
practice,
practice,
realize.
realize.
We reverence the Sangha
We reverence the Sangha
and aspire to follow it.
and aspire to follow it.
The fellowship of those who tread the way,
The fellowship of those who tread the way,
as one by one.
as one by one,
We make our own commitment,
we make our own commitment,
an ever-widening circle.
an ever-widening circle.
The Sangha grows.
The Sangha grows. verses from the Dhammapada, from the thousands. Though one should conquer in battle thousands upon thousands of men, yet he who conquers himself is truly the greatest in battle. Though one should live 100 years, unethical and unintegrated, better is one single day lived ethically and absorbed in higher meditative states. Though one should live 100 years of evil understanding and unintegrated, better is one single day lived possessed of wisdom and absorbed in higher meditative states. Better than 100 years lived lazily and with inferior energy is one single day lived with energy aroused and fortified. Better than 100 years lived unaware of the rise and fall of all conditioned things is one single day lived aware of the rise and fall of conditioned things. Better than 100 years lived unaware of the deathless state is one single day lived aware of the deathless state. Better than 100 years lived unaware of the supreme truth is one single day lived aware of the supreme truth.
Offerings to the Buddha. Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha,
We offer flowers.
we offer flowers,
Flowers that today are fresh and sweetly blooming.
flowers that today are fresh and sweetly blooming,
Flowers that tomorrow
flowers that tomorrow
are faded and fallen.
are faded and fallen.
Our bodies too,
Our bodies too,
like flowers,
like flowers,
will pass away.
will pass away.
Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha,
We offer candles
we offer candles
to Him who is the light.
to Him who is the light.
We offer light
We offer light
from His greater lamp.
from His greater lamp.
A lesser lamp we light within us.
A lesser lamp we light within us,
The lamp of Bodhi
the lamp of Bodhi,
shining within our hearts.
shining within our hearts.
Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha,
We offer incense.
we offer incense.
Incense whose fragrance pervades the air.
Incense whose fragrance pervades the air.
The fragrance of the perfect life.
The fragrance of the perfect life,
Sweeter than incense.
sweeter than incense,
Spreads in all directions.
spreads in all directions
Throughout the world.
throughout the world. Sabe sahata sukhi hontu. 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 Sabe sahata sukhi hontu.
Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu. Sabe Sata Sukhi Hontu.